How's it going? Gon here. Look at all these games! What have I become? I'm a collector, damn it. I should be collecting game cases, not PNGs. That's it. I'm going to the game store.
Thanks to the internet, most people nowadays order their games online or just flat out buy it digitally, which, hey, same. But I fear nothing beats going to the game store and picking up a game right there and then. It's definitely rarer in the modern age, but it still can be a great experience depending on the store and the selection they have. If I see a Funko Pop, I'm not entering. Yeah, it's not as great as it was a decade or two ago, but we need to appreciate them while they're still around. With PlayStation and Xbox announcing that their next-gen consoles won't feature a disc drive, thus not supporting physical discs, the death of physical games is imminent, and I'm scared. Not only it means we won't own our games anymore since they're selling them exclusively as digital licenses, but it also means the end of game stores. So, why not? Let's use this opportunity to talk about the past and present of game stores, and how they kinda suck. What most think of when the words game stores are uttered is GameStop. To Americans at least. GameStop is undoubtedly the most popular store that sells games. They've been around for decades, they have multiple stores across the world, but even with that, their reputation kinda sucks and their practices are questionable. I've heard you can trade a stack of games like this and not even get enough money to buy a new game. It's rough, but I've seen worse. But hey, GameStop is iconic. That white and red logo is simple, but quite memorable. But not for me, I never went to GameStop, and that's for two reasons. First of all, I'm from Portugal and we don't have any GameStops around here anymore. And that leads to the second reason. GameStop did exist here at some point of time, but by the time they shut down, I was still pretty young. GameStop came around here in 2007 and had a pretty short run, shutting down only 5 years later in 2012. Information about GameStop Portugal is pretty scarce, and finding images of old locations is also pretty rare. But I don't know, maybe I actually went to GameStop. I remember going to other game stores around 2011 and 2012, so maybe GameStop could have been one of them. But since I have very little info about where the stores were located, I'm still in the dark, and I'll probably be for life. But good going, GameStop. It's impressive how you still managed to survive after all these years. Alright, Gon, then where do you shop for games?
Aldi.
Yeah, in the last couple of years I've mostly bought my games at online stores like Amazon. But when we're talking about physical stores, I generally visit the big boys like Fortnite and Fnac, aka tech stores. Quick question, is there a big retail store that still sells exclusively video games? Cause it seems like most of them have pivoted to other things alongside selling games. Like GameStop doesn't sell only video games anymore, they now have merchandise and knickknacks that shouldn't belong on the GameStop. But who am I to judge? Well, in the case of Fortnite and Fnac, they've always been tech stores and video games are more of a secondary thing, kinda like Best Buy. And I gotta say, it has become sadder over the years going to these places. I swear, back then you could have easily found the game you wanted plus more. The selection was massive and they had a ton of games. Now I can't even find Mario RPG for the Switch. That's why I buy my games online. There's always a fat chance they don't have the game you want in stock on that specific location. But when they do, well, it's always a great feeling. But I'd say it's sadder in Fortnite's case. My local store had a massive video game section with all the latest PS3 and Wii games, and they later added Amiibo during the Wii U and early Switch era. Now they have whatever sports game released 2 years ago. It's putrid. I don't mean to sound like an old man, which I do, but what happened? What happened?
Damn it, Fred.
That's one side of the coin. On the other side of the spectrum, we have retro game stores or mom and pop shops, which 99% of the time are the best. I remember going to my very first retro game store and being astonished by the selection. It was the first time I saw most of these iconic games in a single place. A small one at that. It was great. They were asking $30 for Sonic 06, I bought it anyways. But hey, when we talk about big retro game stores, we've gotta mention CEX, a place named after something I dear god never get to experience. I probably shouldn't count CEX as just a game store. They sell more than that, like phones and movies. They're a second-hand tech store. CEX is like 4chan, it's something that mustn't be consumed, but damn it, sometimes you just wanna be bad. CEX seems more like an Europe saying, but it did exist in the US in the past. So, touche America, you got GameStop and we got CEX. Can we trade? CEX is not that bad. Here, I bought Jagger's Party Quiz for the PS2 there.
And I've never been the same since.
Aside from ridiculous prices, I don't have any problem with CEX. I got most of my retro games there. Though I'll never forget the time they sold me a defective copy of Mario Kart Double Dash. And I bought it with the GameCube, so I didn't know if it was the game's problem or if the console couldn't read the disc properly. Thankfully, it was the game and I successfully got a refund, but holy shit, CEX. But being completely honest, CEX is probably the best looking game store that's still around. Maybe that's because I like red. Bird. Well, they have that too. It has a nostalgic feel to it. In an age where most stores just opt for a basic black or white color scheme, this one is a breath of fresh air. CEX is good for what it is, though their prices are kinda scummy.
Sadly, yes. But if I must commit grave desecration, then so be it.
Go back to the grave, my friend. Game! That's it, it's just game. This was probably my first game store, and I really miss it. The best way to describe Game is peak GameStop, but purple. Similarly to CEX, Game was everywhere back in the day. If you had a mall in your area, there was a high chance it had a game store. It was genuinely one of my all-time spots back in the early 2010s. It was that, and a quarter store. Game had a certain vibe to it. I loved the white and purple aesthetic. I don't know why, I just did, and still do. Game was basically like every other game store. You had recent stuff, which at the time was PS3, Wii, and 360, but also older stuff from the PS2 and GameCube generation. Game was exactly like a game store should be. Cool displays, nice branding and aesthetic, demo kiosks, TV showing trailers and demos, old and new games, used games, oh, it was perfect. Maybe I'm glazing it too much, but I can't help it. I was 5 inches tall and looked great, but I know deep down, Game wasn't perfect. None. I remember going to a CEX on a school trip and picking up Crazy Golf for the PS2 and finding an old-ass €9 price tag from Games, still intact, and that made my day, cause I knew Games Legacy lived on. What? It still exists in Spain and the UK as an online store? Well, that's tragic. From the little I've seen, Game never had a great reputation, even back then. Game shut down in Portugal around 2013, but rising from the ashes came New Game. Somebody liked New Soup a little too much. New Game was weird. It was the same as Game, but orange for some reason. Oh, but now they sold merchandise, and that's where this Iceberg plush from Angry Birds Space came from. This is the only memento I have of New Game. It didn't have the staying power Game had, and only a few stores existed around the country, so then it slowly disappeared in 2015.
New Game was a weird comeback, like, it was basically dead on arrival. Game failed, that's it, go home.
While not exactly a game store, Toys R Us did sell video games. That's right, boys, we still have Toys R Us and you don't. Give me an award right now. I don't have much to say about the video game section of Toys R Us, though I'll never forget they had Dancing with the Stars for the PS2 as late as 2020. If I bought it, I would have put it, right here. From my understanding, they don't sell games anymore, but it was a good run, I guess. I don't know. You tell me, Toys R Us goers. I never went to this place, unfortunately, but I always wanted to visit the Sony Metreon in San Francisco. We're all aware of the Nintendo store, but Sony also had one for PlayStation, and my god, was it beautiful. Yes, a physical PlayStation store did exist, but it was much more than that. In 1999, Sony opened the Sony Metreon Mall, and it featured a movie theater, a Discovery Channel store, the very first Microsoft store, a theme park, an arcade, and the PlayStation store. And this place was awesome. It offered what you would expect for a PlayStation store, games and some merch, but what I admire is the aesthetic and atmosphere. This place looked like the inside of a PS1. You had screens everywhere, colorful memorabilia, and overall, it seems like I just walked into a 90s E3 booth. And it also received updates during the PS2 and PS3 generations, so that every new console launch felt like you were entering into a new world. Now this is the perfect game store, which makes Sony's announcement even more ironic. But unfortunately, business wasn't doing too well. Throughout the years, almost every store in the mall shut down with the exception of the PlayStation Store. But it all came to a halt when in 2009, Sony sold the Metreon and the PlayStation Store was no more, being replaced by a Target.
God, I love capitalism.
I never went to the physical PlayStation Store. I was practically a baby when it shut down, but I can only imagine it was a great spot to be. I blame two things for the downfall of game stores: digital games and corporate minimalism. Going to the game store isn't exciting anymore. You're always surrounded by soulless branding and shitty games. Remember Mind's Eye? Yeah, last week I saw the PS5 version of that thing selling at full price and I almost couldn't believe it. But that was a rare stupid case. One of the biggest benefits when buying a physical game is store discounts. Everybody knows that. But now with this digital push Sony and Microsoft are doing, that won't be the case anymore. Not the same way you're used to with physical games, and believe me, it's gonna get a lot worse. It saddens me how far companies go to make more money. Like, sure, digital has become the new norm in the past decade. It's more convenient buying a game right there and then and not worry about space on the shelf or damaging the disc. I'm at fault too. I bought a Hat in Time and Celeste digitally for the PS5 back in 2021. That was the first and only time I bought digital games, but still, I want options, damn it. These methods have coexisted for more than a decade, and now you want to get rid of arguably the most important option? You were so pro-physical last generation, Sony. Why are you tearing us apart?
Every time I think things couldn't get any worse, corporate greed comes into play. What will happen with going to the store and picking up a new game or hanging out with fellow gaming heads? What will happen with midnight launches? That was a big part of the experience. Well, I wish nothing but the best to all remaining game stores. Even if it's not the same as the good old days, I won't take it for granted. On other news, I'm going to Spain! Never going there again. They forgot the disc.